if you're married out there, even if you've been married for a week, if you have a girlfriend, whatever it might be, when you're making decisions like this, bigger, more expensive decisions, are you just making those big decisions by yourself? Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Jon Valenta's back with us this week, and we're talking about something that took me way too long to figure out. It's the idea of having both decision makers as part of the sales conversation. Oh, man, did it take me too long. Jon, how long did it take you to figure out that?
Phew. I had no idea back in the day that that was even a thing, and probably 10 years of selling, just saying, "Okay, I'll meet with you." You know, your wife or your husband or whoever, they don't have to be there. I'll just meet with you, see what you want, and I'll get you a price, and then you can go think about it.
I.e. not buy it, right?
Yep.
Oh, man, why do we take the bait, man? Why do we take the bait when we have somebody call in, they're excited about a project, and we can't wait to go out? We're taught, I know that I was in the beginning, the faster you can get out there, first company is the one you want to be, right? You want to be out there first because they're going to see you're most interested in the project, and there's a higher probability they're going to hire you. So we got to just all right, it's 2:15 p.m. on a Monday. I can be out 5 p.m. tonight. How's that sound? No qualification, barely ask them what they want. Maybe just a couple of quick questions, whatever. And then be like, yeah, sounds good. I'll be there at 5 because I'm going to be the fastest one there. And that'll work 25 or 30% of the time, right? You'll close 1 out of 3, if that. So how is it that, especially for higher ticket guys, if you're out there closing $1,000, leaf cleanups and things like that, then this isn't necessarily going to relate to what you do. But if you're out there selling projects that are multifaceted, whether it's a patio, fire pit, seating wall, or anything that's a real construction project around the house that's going to include multiple pieces and most likely a design, even if it's a basic one, man, we call them one-leggers. That's when you get one person. And we have this context of, or these two characters that always play this out. It's called the bird dog and the banker, right? Bird dog is the easily excitable one, the one that called you, the one that filled out your form, the one that has all kinds of opportunities for the backyard. They've got a list of 17 things that are going to fit beautifully back there. They have no budget. Their timeline is right away, and they are just so pleasant and fun to talk to. So we put all of our eggs in that basket, and we go to town, design, get a proposal together, spend a lot more than 2 hours with the client, come back with all of that and finalize with them. Yeah, sounds great. Let me tell my husband. Let me tell my wife. And then all of a sudden you don't hear from them anymore. And you're like, what? They were so excited. Like there was no way I could possibly lose. There's no way. I mean, there's no way other contractors got that kind of response like I did. Like, there's just no way because I nailed it. I mean, I told her my whole spiel. She was smiling, happy. We joked a bunch, and she even gave me iced tea. Like, seriously. So why is that happening? Why is it that when I leave, I don't hear back from them? Jon, what do you think?
They got a reality check when they brought it up to the banker, and he put the kibosh on it.
Yep. And I didn't know that, dude. When I first started, just like you start now, we didn't know that. First 10 years, I'd probably say it was a little longer for me. I'm a slow learner sometimes. And I was thinking, well, yeah, I got one person. Like, I'm not going to bother and tell them I need both of you there. That's kind of awkward and strange. Why would I do that? And what if they said no? What would happen? And man, wow. I mean, if I had $1 for every single meeting I went to over the first 10, 15 years of my career where I did not even know this, I mean, my goodness, I could have retired at 30. Seriously, we used to chase a lot of leads. And it was always, yeah, will you be there? Yeah, we'll be there. And they get there. Most of the time they're there, like they actually show up to the meeting or they're home. But man, it was that one person. Or you had all the conversation with one person, and you get there and the husband comes home and he's looking at his wife like, what is this guy here for? Oh, honey, remember you said you wanted to do the backyard? Remember that? The front walkway is a little nasty. So I figured if I got somebody out, we could talk to him tonight. What do you think? And he just rolls his eyes and walks into the other room. And you're like, oh boy, I feel like all the energy went out of the room and her face just goes, brr. What just happened? What just
You
happened?
just wasted a lot of time.
Yep. You don't have buy-in from both parties. I mean, one person can spearhead the project It could be the bird dog or the banker. One can spearhead the project, kind of be quote unquote in charge of it. But if you're not talking to both decision makers, you are more than 50% likely to fail on that project, meaning not to get it, not to close it. Because if you're trying to pitch to one and have that one sell the other person on everything you said, what's the likelihood of them doing a good job at that?
There's no way they're gonna uh, portray it exactly like you do, or remember everything, or it's not going to be the same.
It's not,
It's not going to have the same effect.
not at all. And that's the part that I didn't realize. That's the part that I was like, wait a minute here. Then when the light bulb went off and I started studying and realizing that, with communication, especially in a situation where we're mostly, not every single time, John, but most of the time we're selling to two people. Husband and wife team or whatever the framework is, but it's normally to two people. And if that's the case, then somebody else has an opinion about what they need, want, and desire, right? Something that they might need. Because how many times did you take in phone calls when you did get both people, or even on site when you met with somebody or family, and you find that husband and wife have vastly different wants and needs? He wants the outdoor kitchen and the barbecue, and he wants a place to smoke cigars with his buddies while they're drinking beer with a new outdoor kitchen with a bar on the side of it. And she's like, I just want a space to sit in the sun. I want to be able to pick flowers. I want to have a space that I can be comfortable, putting dinner out each night. And they have vastly different needs. And if you're only serving one side of that equation, because she just talks about all her stuff, or he just talks about all his stuff, the other person feels left out. And when it comes time to stroke the check, knowing most of the time that's the banker, they're going to be like, if I didn't get what I want, why are we going to invest this? Even if I want to make my wife or husband happy, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're not going to feel like there's enough value to stroke a check like that. So, listeners, if you're not engaging both decision makers, and now again, I'm talking about projects that are, we say in the academy, projects that have design involved or have more than one facet involved, it would be highly recommended. And if you're going into design projects that are 25K and higher, then it's in our words, internally, not that we tell our customers this, but it's required. We better have both decision makers as part of that conversation. We're not taking the call. Our discovery process doesn't start until they're both there. Even if it has us lose the client, even if the client says, nope, sorry, nope, my husband or my wife is never around. You're going to have to take a one leg call. That's not what they say, but then you're going to have to take a call only with me. I'm running this project. This is all my thing. I said, of course. We'll go through exactly what that sounds like in a moment. But the reality is that once that happens, you have a choice to make. If they're bucking your system now, and you get the best results when both decision makers are part of this conversation, then why are you moving forward? If you know that, and it is the truth, listeners, if you know that, I mean, think about it, listeners. If you're married out there, even if you've been married for a week, if you have a girlfriend, whatever it might be, when you're making decisions like this, bigger, more expensive decisions, are you just making those big decisions by yourself? Majority of the time, no. I mean, I've been married 20 years. I've known my wife for 22 years, and I'm not going to be spending 20, 50, $100,000 around the house without talking to her about it first. I don't know about you, John. Can you get away with that?
Absolutely not.
Right? They all have their opinions and their thoughts. I want to make sure, like my wife, she gets eaten alive by mosquitoes. So if we were going to spend that kind of money in the backyard and there wasn't some plan to mitigate mosquitoes in the backyard, she wouldn't want to spend any money, even if she wanted the other things to be done, because she wouldn't engage the space. So if she's not heard, understood, seen, and she hasn't been asked this entire sales process because we've just been working in this case with me and not talking to her, then that would be a big problem. Because when it came time to bring it to the kitchen table, say, honey, look, I've got all this design together. Look at this beautiful backyard. It does everything that we talked about. And she says, well, what about the mosquitoes? And what about the light? And I don't want to block the windows to the back of the house. And pretty soon the project's stuck again. And it might blow the whole thing up. They might be like, this is not the right time to do that. That's why having a discovery process where you can get both decision makers together early before you ever leave your office to understand and make sure that they are on the same page, that they are both aligned and they want to move forward. And if they're not aligned, how to help them get the alignment needed for them to make a good decision for themselves. That'll cut your sales journey time down significantly, won't it? I mean, over the years, John, I've had clients that have called in and they've talked about stuff. And I've had where the wife wants the swimming pool. That's all she wants. And he wants the deck and patio and the barbecue. And the pool is not something he's really that interested in. So you have this dynamic back and forth where they're actually starting to almost argue or fully argue on the phone about what's important, what their hot buttons are, right? What is a priority for each of them. And sometimes that works out, and sometimes it doesn't work out. There's a line I love to use when you have clients that are bickering back and forth, like, guys, I get it. There's a lot of decisions to make here. And if they come to you and ask you, what do you think? Said, look, I charge a lot more for couples therapy, right? I don't do that, right? That's not my specialty. So why don't you guys go back, talk about it, and give me a call back? You know where we are right now. You know the next steps. Why don't you talk about it? And when you got more clarity around what you want to do, then we can move forward and leave it up to them to make that decision. Because if there's an impasse, a disalignment, or a misalignment in their own marriage and their own needs list, until they come to terms with that, either adding all of it in or cutting some of it out, somebody's going to lose, somebody's going to win, and that whole thing's not going to work. So we must get them all on the same page. So, what are some stories from you, John, that you've heard over the years of misalignments and clients telling you, "Oh, I can handle it. My husband's not around, my wife's not around, whatever." Like, how has that turned out for you?
Yeah, it never turns out. I mean, back in the day when it was just always you're so excited that somebody's calling you and asking you to, and think you're gonna get this project. You just want to say yes, and you're gonna go out there and you're gonna meet with them on the evening, or you're gonna meet with them on the weekend, and take time away from your family. But like you said, you're gonna be the first one out there. You're gonna go whenever they say you're gonna go. You're gonna go out there. You're not even gonna ask about any other decision makers, and you're gonna get there, and then, even worse than to think about it, you're gonna get, "Well, okay, well, now I'm gonna go tell my husband." If you just would have asked in the beginning if there's any other decision makers, you can have them both there and get input from both and find out what's gonna work for both of them, and more than likely, you're gonna have a much better chance of accomplishing what they're hoping to, achieve and getting the project.
100%, dude. Yeah, and that was a really hard lesson, listeners, for both John and I to learn, right? We have so many hours wasted with thinking that, oh, if I could just get the one, if I could just win this one, they'll convince their husband or wife that this is a good decision and I won't have to do all of that work. But and here's even the worst part. It's not that they say no or they say yes and never get back to you. It's when they say yes and give you a check, and first couple of days on the project, the one who was never part of the conversation, let's just call him the banker, pops out and says, "What are you doing?" Like, well, we're doing what we were paid to do. We're going to put stepping stones here. We're going to wrap them in grass. We're going to have it pop over to this bed. We're going to have the water feature here. And he's like, I don't like that color. I don't like the shape of those stones. I mean, we've had that happen to us already. Like, I don't like, what do you mean? You saw the design, didn't you? No, this is my wife's thing. I'm just jumping in to take a look and I don't like that at all. I don't think it matches the house. I'm going to go talk to my wife. And then I'm sitting here like, what? It's like I'm walking out on a buried landmine. And now the whole project is stopped until they decide and discuss with each other because he thought it was going to be brown and she wanted gray. And I'm like, now my whole crew and I got to pull off and go to another job because of that communication wasn't done because he was never available. And I'm like, "That we cannot do business this way. We cannot. It's killing us. It's killing my profit. It's killing my time. It's killing my stress level and me too." Have you ever had something like that happen to you, John, where the communication of the person just wasn't there?
Totally. And it's not good, like you said, pulling off the job mid-project and, things not, what the other one thought it was gonna look like, and, "What are we gonna do? How am I gonna fix this?" Um, Gotta get that all figured out in the beginning, and the best way to do that is to meet with both decision makers, and you gotta be strict about it. It's like, anytime that I bend the rules, it never works. We never end up getting the job, and it's always, like, some excuse, but you just you gotta stick to your process and meet with the both decision makers. You gotta do it nicely. You're not gonna be demanding, but you gotta ask anyone else is involved in decision making on this project, and then find a time when all of you are available so you can all meet together. And then when you're there, make sure you pay attention to both of them. Sometimes one of them is really quiet and the other one gets all talk. And gotta at some point find the time and make sure you look at that quiet person and ask them what they want,
Yep.
what they, want and in the project, or, what input they might have, so that they know that you're paying attention to both of them, that you understand both of them.
Man, thank you for bringing that up. That is such a powerful, powerful lesson, listeners. If you weren't listening or weren't paying attention, what John just said right there, it changes the game. If you're having a conversation and somebody's taking over that conversation and talking, let's just say to the wife the whole time you go out and you meet with a customer and the wife is talking the whole time and the husband's kind of disconnected or not really paying attention or just not saying much. And you take the bait and only talk to the one who's talking a lot. What do you think the other person feels like deep down? Do they feel understood, seen? Do they feel like you actually care about them? And I know sometimes that's tough, listeners. Sometimes those people are just like, I don't want to talk to that guy. I don't want to talk to her. She seems really nasty, whatever. Like, but still, think about it. That other person, we call it the reach across, right? You got to reach across and tap them on the shoulder. So what do you think? Mrs. Jones, you've been quiet over there. Do you want to add anything to this conversation? And immediately, oh my goodness, it's like a flower opens up. It's incredible how many times it's happened. Like, well, yeah, I mean, he really wants this swimming pool, like really, really bad, but I'm still scared. Like when I was a little girl, my friend almost drowned in a swimming pool, and I've been really, really, really scared about the pool. And I know he says it's not going to happen to us. Our kids are older and all this, but that's good information. First of all, she's able to share it with you, which shows her trust. But second of all, guess who's capturing all that? Listeners, it's you capturing that information. So next question would be like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. So how would what would it have to look like? This backyard have to look like so that you felt fully safe that none of that was going to happen to your family, right? And what do you think she's going to say? Something like, well, maybe if there's a fence between the pool and the backyard, theirs was all open, or maybe whatever, like maybe there's 3 locks on every gate so that the kids can't mess around with them, or maybe there's no benches next to the fence because that's how my cousin got over or whatever, right? So my point is that when you start asking those questions, you start drilling in, and when you have a client that's quiet, there's something that they want to say. Invite them in the conversation. Invite them in. It's so important. So, is there anything else on your mind? You know, John, you haven't said anything. Do you want to add anything to that? You hear how it's curious, light, tonality's up at the end? Because you're a detective trying to figure this out. Don't let that quiet person just be forgotten, because there's a lot of greatness that comes from the quiet person. And pretty soon they become the one talking the most. Because maybe in their family dynamic, he or she does most of the talking. And the other one always feels like they're left out. But think how much trust you build and rapport you build going in and giving that quieter person the microphone so they can finally be heard and understood. And then you can design something that they both love. And when you get them both on board, what do you think your chance of bringing that project to life is? A lot more than 25 to 30%, that's for sure. It goes up significantly. Oh, that's a good one, John. Thank you for that. So it's so important, guys, when it comes to outdoor living spaces or anything high ticket, which is really designated at like $2,000 and more, um, to make sure you're trying to get both decision makers involved, specifically early. And now, the bigger the project, the more that becomes a requirement. Like I said, after $25,000, you got design involved, and both decision makers, in my humble opinion, should be part of those conversations. And that starts from your discovery call, not your initial call, but your discovery call afterward, where you get them both together and discuss the project, and then your meeting at site, and even the design presentation and the proposal presentation. All those things should be done with both decision makers. And when you do that, guess how much your closing rate goes up? Just a small shift makes every bit of difference. All right, John, I want to tell one story about this that kind of really locked it in for me here. And I'm sure you have one too. So this story was a client that reached out, and we've made it internal words. We don't need to say this out in the world, but internal words. We make it a requirement that both decision makers are on our discovery process. Because if they're not, we know that have less than 50% chance of closing that project, which means there's a 50% chance of wasting our time. And we're not in the time wasting business, right? We're in the time efficiency business and the customer experience business. So with that, this lady calls and she wants to do this big project. She sends in the contact form. And so I'm sitting down on a discovery call with her, and she knows from the initial call that, Becky lines it up that both her and her husband we find we get the best results when both of them are part of this process. And she says, no problem. Okay. Well, I get on the phone, say it's a Tuesday at 9 a.m. I pick, call her, and it's only her. And I'm like, okay, I'm already prepared for this because we train that exact thing. We're always training for what the worst case scenario, so that when it's not there, it's easy. But when it is there, it doesn't surprise us. So she comes on and she's like, I'm looking to do this outdoor project. I said, hey, I'd love that. We did some rapport building. Will Steve be joining us today? Oh, no, he's busy. He's at the hospital. He can't, he's working. There's no way he can make this call. Okay, got it. So I'm just going to call her Alice for sake of a name. It doesn't really matter. I'm like, Alice, we finally get the very best results when we have both you and Steve on this call because I want to make sure that we can go through everything that is important to both of you. Make sure your fingerprints are all over, both of your fingerprints are all over this project. And I want to make sure you get the um, exact outcome that you're looking for. So we're going to reschedule this call to make sure we have time that both of you can meet. And I'll get that over to Becky to set up. And she says, but no. Hold on, Joshua. My husband said I'm in charge, and that's what I'm in charge here. So he doesn't need to be here. His schedule's way too busy. I said, I understand that, and I totally appreciate that. But we finally get the very best results when both you and your husband are here. So we need to reschedule this call to make sure that both your fingerprints are all over this project and that you absolutely love the result at the end. She's like, no, you don't understand. I'm in charge. I'm like, I understand. No, she goes, you don't. Is it? Dude, I can't even make this up, John. Is it because I'm a woman? No
Wow.
bullshit. I mean, absolutely that exact way. And I was like, no, ma'am, not at all. I absolutely know you could handle this on your own. But we finally get the very best results when both you and your husband are on this call. She got so pissed and she eventually hung up. I was like, okay. If they're bucking your system this early, when you know that it's going to be in their best interest to have both her and her husband on there, you have to make a decision, listeners, as a business owner or as a sales professional on what your target is there, but we won't take it. If they're going to buck our system right off the second call, what are they going to do when money's on the table? What are they going to do when they want a certain time frame? I got all these red flags I put in the book. If you guys get a copy of the book over on Amazon, you'll see a bunch of red flags in there. And those are the things that come up that we kind of ignore or kind of brush off. And then they become landmines that we walk into right before we're looking for money. And they're blow up. That's why people lose. So many contractors lose money. So anyway, to further the story out, I said that we'd reach out to her and set up another time. And so Becky reached out to her and she's like, I'm not rescheduling with you. I'm like, filter worked. Thank you, Lord. Right? And off we go. So some would be like, oh my God, I can't believe, you're listening to me. I can't believe you would do that to somebody. I'm like, no, I just saved her and me a lot of time. I mean, time is our most precious asset. And if we don't value it, how are they going to value it? And if she's trying to tell me how to run my business, that's not acceptable because she's going to try to run everything all the way through. I've given in to those people. I've given in to that pressure. I have not had the spine in the early days to stand up to that. And once I did, changed everything. Your closing rates skyrocket when you do that. So, John, I'd love to hear a story that you've had with that because I'm sure you've run in over the last how many decades you've run into this and probably more than once.
Yeah, maybe not that wild, but I do have it where, okay, we get, both decision makers and make the appointment for the on-site consultation, and I get there and there's only one.
Oh, yeah.
And, always one of the first things, oh, is your husband or your wife, whoever's not there, are they, going to be here as well? Are they available? And, oh no, it's always the excuse, oh, they got called into work or whatever it is. And but I'm already there, it's different than a phone call, so I've already made the trip. So it's like, now what do I do? So I've always just gone through with it, and then, of course, you can't get an answer because there's only one of them there, and it's, I'm gonna have to talk to my spouse, whoever it is. So my question to them is two-part. What are you going to tell them that you liked about me, and what are you gonna tell them you're concerned about?
Good
The only that
questions.
way I can get some answers and an idea, because they're not gonna sell me as good as I'm gonna sell me, but, I'm gonna get an idea of what they thought of me, what they're gonna, tell their spouse, what they might be concerned about. I can answer some of those questions now, and then hopefully reschedule another appointment for another time when everybody is available, and then,
Yeah.
really make sure of that.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's real good because there are times when life happens, right? There's traffic and they can't get back to home on time. I had one guy one time, dude. I went down to it was down in the Philadelphia market, and I went down there, and he wanted all kinds of backyard stuff. And anyway, I got down there, and I go in, I talk to the wife, and this was before I had, an actual process. I went in this big house, like right in a beautiful community. I'm like, this is going to be great. And I come in the house and I'm supposed to be there at like 3 o'clock. I get there at like 2:55. I'm always a little early. and take my shoes off, walk in the house, talk to the wife for a little bit. And she's like, oh, my husband will be with you in a moment. And I could hear him, dude. I could hear him in the next room in his office. He was so loud, it echoed through the whole house, talking to his buddy about golf. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, this is his house. It's cool. And she's like, here, you can sit in the foyer and I'll get you something to drink. And I'm like, okay. So I sat there and 3 o'clock passed and he's still talking to his buddy about hanging out with his buddies and playing golf. 3:05, 3:10. 3:15, and he knew I was out there because his wife went in the office twice. And I was like, "Joshua, what do you do here? What do you do?" I'm like, "You can sit here and wait." And all he was trying to do was trying to flex his muscle that he's in charge, that he is more important than me. And this isn't about, who's whatever. Like, it's not about pride or ego. That's not what this is about. It's about respect. If he's not respecting me already, what's going to happen later? So anyway, I waited. I have new rules now, but back then I waited 20 minutes listening to him have this conversation with his wife going in and out of the office trying to get him out. And she's just shaking her head like this. And I just said, at 20-minute mark, I said, it's not going to work out. Thank you for the water. And I just walked out. That was it. I was like, I had enough. No more. It'd be one thing if it was like a family emergency or it was something that he just couldn't get off of, or like I can respect that. But when I could hear everything he was saying, and none of it was important when it comes to not talking about it so that he could be there for the time that we scheduled together. Anyway, I left. Would you believe an hour later, he calls the office and says, where'd he go? And Becky's like, he was at your house. I told her about it. I says, he was at your house. You weren't available. Well, I'd like to reschedule. And we're like, we're not interested in rescheduling. Thank you. I wish you the best on your journey. And that was it. That was the end of that one. So it's like, you run into some crazy stuff out there. It's the nature of the beast. The question is, what do you do? And ever since then, I've made a rule. I make rules around things after things happen once. Like once it happens, it's a mistake. You learn, whatever, learning moment. But after that, I have a 10-minute rule. And no matter what kind of meeting I have scheduled, whether it's a Zoom meeting or a live meeting, there's a 10-minute rule that if it doesn't, I give a 10-minute grace. And say, for instance, we're doing, and I do this with my students too. If for some reason they don't show up to one of their calls that we've scheduled together, they've agreed was the right time for them. If they don't show up for 10 minutes, it's over. I don't wait. That's my point. And if they want to reschedule, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But I have 10 minutes. I will not wait longer than 10 minutes. And that's even being gracious. I really have more of a 5-minute thing, but it's 10 minutes is my max. I'll leave it up and I'll watch. But I'm like, no, because listeners, listen, your time is precious. It's the most sacred thing you have is your time. And if you're just giving it away and others don't care, I've already had people try to come on the podcast. And when they come on the podcast and I'm like, all right, well, we're supposed to be on at 2:00 and now it's 2:10. And I text, hey, is everything okay? Is everything working? And no answer back. Well, 2:10 clip, reschedule. This is how you take control of your own schedule and not have to have everyone else's lack of ability of time management coming into your life and stealing your time. Because I'd rather go spend time with my kids and my wife than sit there waiting for somebody who may never show up. So the question really is, how much are you willing to stand with boundaries around your time at the end of the day?
Good stuff. It's it's really important, and just like the two decision makers, being on time. If I mean, I do everything in my power to be early. If for whatever reason some emergency comes up, I'm going to be late. My rule is like if I'm going to be 5 minutes late, I'm going to call them 5 minutes before the time we're supposed to be there and let them know. I'm going to be 20 minutes late. I'm going to call 20 minutes before the time that we're supposed to be there. That way, at least I'm giving them a heads up. It's
100%. And that's
really
respect.
important. Yeah,
Yep.
really important to be there, not just on time, but early. And and people notice that. Even if they don't tell you, they're noticing that you were there on time, that, you respect their time, and it goes both ways. They'll respect your time.
100%, dude. And you're absolutely right, especially early on in the process when you tell them you're going to call them at 8:00 or 2:00 and you call them at like 15 minutes after. Fashionably late is not cool in business. You might be able to be fashionably late with your buddies or with your parents or whatever. Like that's cool, whatever. But when it comes to business, trust is part of a currency. And trust is built each time you say something and do something, right? You say 2:00, you're there at 2:00 or a little earlier. When you're later, trust gets bruised a little bit. And if you say you're going to have a proposal by Friday and it doesn't get there, your trust level goes down, not up. So if you're going to say something, do it. That's the most important part. So when it comes to being on time, that's the simplest thing. And if you're running late, to your point, if you're running late and you're in hit traffic and you're like, look, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. Don't just be like, well, I'm cool. I'm 5 minutes late. I'm a contractor. I can be cool. I can be as late as I want to be. They're just going to wait for me. Like BS. Call them. Be like, guys, look, I'm in traffic. My GPS says I'm 7.5 minutes away. I'm on my way. Just want to let you know. Okay. That's how you build trust. Because it's not necessarily being late that's a problem. It's them not knowing why. And they feel like now they're just not worthy of your time, or you were too busy doing something else and didn't have the decency to call them and let them know. So these things are just so important. And you guys, listeners, you're going to run into times in life where you're going to have clients, customers who maybe are widowed or single that own a house. Obviously this doesn't work there. You're not going to be like, hey, no, you actually bring your mom with you. Right? We have to have two people. That's what Joshua says on his podcast. You got to have two people with at every single time, both decision makers. So if it's your cat or your kid or your mom, make sure I need to have two people at that call or on that meeting. Obviously, that's not the case, but there may be other decision makers that are not family or are family, but at a couple of rings out. Have you ever had that, John? Where maybe it's a widowed situation or a single situation where someone has some other decision maker in the background, but you don't know that because you only hear about one person. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had and it was a shock, when I got there. It's like, "Well, who's this person?" "No, they're my friend, they used to do this kind of work, so they're gonna be here, to make sure that, you're doing everything right." And, so, okay, it was kind of thrown at me when I got there. I didn't know because on the phone, they said, "Nope, no, no, no spouse, it's just me." And then they throw that wrench in it when you get there.
I've already had meetings where I went out, we did a whole discovery process, both husband and wife, everything went really well. They get there and actually do the on-site meeting. That's step 3, right? On-site meeting, and we get there, and his parents were there because they were gonna watch the kids while, mom and dad had the conversation with us, the homeowners, right? But then dad's not paying attention to the kids. He loves construction, so now I'm in a process of trying to sell the homeowner or trying to communicate and serve the homeowner, and also a dad who has all kinds of different questions, and I'm not sure if he's financially involved in this or whether he just wanted his 2 cents in there, but I know his 2 cents are important to the son who is the banker, right? So it's like this whole mix of things, and you're trying to mix it all up and make sure you're talking to everybody in a way that they need to understand, and asking great questions and leading them and all of that good stuff. But it's an interesting dynamic when you get thrown that curve, and it happens sometimes. A couple times a year that'll happen when they'll have friends in the house or family in the house during that conversation. So it's just be prepared, listeners, when you go out there. That sometimes things come up that you don't expect, but just expect to pivot and expect to include them because they're going to be part of it. Because you don't know. Maybe mom or dad that's listening along, they're the ones that are funding this thing. Maybe they aren't, I don't know. But I know we've had a lot of different clients, one in particular, an incredible client of ours. She was so fun to work with. And about halfway through the project, she wanted to add a ton more stuff like a floating kitchen. Yeah, it said floating kitchen. It was crazy. It was a really fun engineering feat to make this thing look like it was floating. And she wanted to add a screen system. She wanted to add a big steel staple, like a Corten steel staple outside for water feature. You could walk underneath and walk through, and a pergola. It's like she wanted to add a bunch to this project, but she's like, I'm tapped out. I'm going to talk to my mom. I'm like, okay. So she talks to her mom, and her mom's like, yeah, no problem. We're going to give you some of your inheritance, she said to the daughter, so you can put it in this backyard. And she was so grateful, but now has a little bit of guilt, like she's spending inheritance money on this space. And she was getting down to picking furniture out for it. And then she started, like, you could see that not regret's not the right word, but maybe guilt, that she was feeling guilty for spending all this inheritance money on stuff for the backyard. But anyway, she got exactly what she wanted at the end, but the mother was involved, and the mother was at some of the meetings and all of that. It was important to have her part of that conversation because her inheritance was being spent in the backyard of a daughter's house, which was in her mind a great trade. She enjoyed that. Unfortunately, with that client, after we finished the project, 6 months later, she was transferred out of that house into another place in Florida because their job was moved. So this beautiful, amazing $400,000 backyard was left, put up for sale with the house, of course, and the new owners came in and tore a bunch of stuff out. So, I mean, you just never know what's going to happen at the end of the day, but you also never know who's behind the purse strings too. So it's got to be open and know that there's more to the dynamic and to the conversation than just two homeowners at times. And we have to be aware and able to pivot and move with that and understand where they're coming from. But at a minimum, decision makers, whoever that might be, even if it is a family member outside of the nuclear family circle, it's important to make sure they're part of that conversation, because if they're trying to sell to the side, like we talked about earlier, if they're trying to sell to the side or sell, yeah, just tell me and I'll tell them, what's the likelihood of them actually being able to answer the questions like you could, or ask the questions that are needed to be asked there when they hit a wall? Because that's where objections come up. I mean, that's a whole nother episode right there. But if we can squash objections early by asking good questions that lead to those common objections that come in this world, if we can squash them early and unwire those landmines early, so when you step on them, they don't blow up later when you're asking for money. Why don't we do that? Why don't we just do that? And this is a huge one. Huge one. Oh, it's something I could talk about for days and days and days, John, I swear. Any other stories you have in mind about having decision makers either not show up or blow up a deal?
Yeah, not showing up, that's one, unfortunately has happened, too many times. Um, and I like what you mentioned about like the extra person, whether it's like the parent or some relative. And it's important to just go with it and include them. Because you never know how much input they're going to have, or how much, your customer is relying on them to help them make the decision. So if you can make them feel included and feel comfortable and like they're part of it, that's going to help.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, I appreciate it, sir. Yeah, listeners, think about how you're doing it currently. And, I go deep into the book about this as well, about how to get both decision makers, one of the core 10 principles, right? If you're selling to one, you're going to lose to both. And so it's really important to know that. And since that is a truth, that is a fundamental principle of sales, especially with higher ticket projects. So why don't we just make that part of our conversation in general, part of our way we do business, is to make sure we get them both. It's not just for you to control the situation, it's for them to get the best result. And when we transfer that thinking from me trying to control the situation to them getting the best result, it makes it a lot easier to invite them into that idea. That's really the bigger picture, right? So if we get both decision makers there, we get them both on board, and we're moving the train forward, there's a high probability, at least 50% or more, that they're going to move on with the project. So that's already a huge increase. That's doubling to 25 to 30% in the old way, right? So having both decision makers is a huge leg up to doing this the right way. So, John, appreciate you coming back on here. Anybody out there listen, I hope you got a lot of value today. I hope that you've taken some of this down, taken it to heart. And if you're ignoring it now, eventually it's going to come up in this spring and kick you in the butt. And you're going to be like, you know what? I listened to that podcast once and maybe I need to do that. And if you want to know how to do it with finesse, grab a copy of my book over there at Amazon. It's the Core 10 Sales Playbook, and you can get deeper into that entire core and I've got pages and pages of stuff in there about that. So, guys, thank you for listening. John, thank you for coming back on, and we'll see you next week.
You're welcome. See you soon.